Alright, so I have a picture here of a still life. I took this picture. This is fruit that I bought at the store. And I arranged it in what I thought would make an interesting composition. So that means the way everything is laid out on your paper. So I'm going to draw from this photograph. And I'm going to lightly draw with pencil on my paper first. And I'm going to start here with the apple, because the apple's in the middle. So I'm going to try to figure out, the apple's not way on this side, it's not way on this side, so it's somewhere right here. And you want to try to make it the size of an actual apple. So when you draw it, it shouldn't be super tiny and it shouldn't be super big. It should be about the size an actual apple would be. So an apple, we can tell, is round. There is no hard edges. So I'm going to try and I'm going to draw light until I get it right. That way, if I need to erase, I can. And what I do is I just place it out really, really lightly. You can barely see it. Okay, now I have the pear leaning on the apple. So pear has like a tiny tip and then it gets fatter at the bottom, but it's leaning, so I have to look to see these lines that go around it. I'm looking really closely at the edges. And then way over here I have the orange, so there's space in between. And I can tell it's further back, so it's higher up on the paper. And part of the orange is being cut off. So that's about here. Alright, once that is done, you want to draw the tabletop. So I know mine is going to hit right about here, and I don't draw through. So you can see my very, very light sketch. If I pressed really hard and messed up, I would have to try and erase, and I probably would still see all the marks. So you can just see it's a rough sketch. I didn't put hardly any detail in this. Okay, now I'm going to try to draw the plate. So plate, it's the curved line. And I see the bottom of it's cut off, so I go to the bottom of my paper. Just like that. I don't just make a round plate, because that's what I think it looks like. Look at the actual photo. Okay. So now I'm going to go back. I'm going to outline these a little darker. So you can see. And this is all we need right now, just this. So now I'm going to set my picture to the side. And I'm going to take oil pastels. And I'm going to start here with the apple. So apples are typically red. And you can tell I'm not pressing too hard with this. Oil pastels are really cool because when you press hard they end up looking like paint. But I'm not going to do that, not with this project. So I'm just really light and actually kind of quick. And I see a little bit of like yellowy green in there. So I'm going to put some of that in there. Okay, and now I'm going to move on to the pear. So the pear is this nice yellow green. And I'm going to do the same thing. I see a little bit of a highlight on it, so that means the white part, so I'm just going to kind of leave that white and really quickly I'm going to color this in. Try to stay inside the lines though, even though you're doing this a little fast. Try to stay inside your lines. And then lastly we have the orange. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take baby oil. Now this is oil, okay, so you don't want to get it on your clothes. Be really, really, really careful with this stuff. And you're going to get some in a little container, just like this. And you're going to get a Q-tip. This is going to help blend all your colors together. But before you do that, you have to add a little bit of shadow to make these look a little more realistic. So now I'm going to go back to the photograph and I'm going to see where is the dark spots. So I can see a dark spot right here on the pear. Notice I'm not pressing hard, still light. I see a dark spot over here on the apple. And on the orange, I see a little bit of darkness at the bottom, a little over here, and just a little on the side. Okay. I'm also going to add a little bit of color into this pear. So now let's see what this does. I dip the Q-tip in the oil. And I rub. And you're going to start to see everything blending together. So you don't want to overdo it, because then it'll just be too messy. And if you feel you need to add a little more oil pastel in there to get a little more color because you didn't put enough, go ahead. Okay, now I've used both ends of my Q-tip, so if you notice one end isn't too bad with being messy, you can reuse it. This red is done, so you can maybe just get a new one, or I'm going to go back because this doesn't look too messy. I'm going to add a little more orange here. I want it to be a little brighter, so I'm going to press down a little harder. So once we have this complete, then you can go back and you can color in, for instance, the stem. And I want you to pick what color you want your plate to be. And I want you to outline it with an oil pastel. And I want you to decide what color you want the table to be and outline that with an oil pastel. Okay, and then from here we will paint. Okay, so before I begin painting, I remember from my photograph, I'm going to bring it up again really quickly. We see shadows underneath our fruit. That's really, really important to help make things look realistic, is to add the shadow. So right now, with black, I'm going to do that. Please don't forget this step. It makes a huge difference. You can already tell. Okay? And if you want to use a little bit of oil on that to smooth it, please do. So that's the last thing you do before you paint. So now I'm going to use stuff called liquid watercolor. So watercolor usually comes in little trays. This is like regular paint, so it's liquid. And I want you to paint in your plate, your table, and your background space. Be careful not to get it inside your fruit. So slow down when you get to the edges. And you can even blend the colors. So I'll do a little bit of violet. In the background. And I'm making this up. This isn't how it actually looks in the photograph. So I have a little bit of artistic freedom here. And then I rinse, rinse, rinse. And now I'm going to put a little bit of blue in there too. Okay, so now my still life is complete, and I have shown value, I've shown dark, and I've shown light, and I've shown space in between. It ends up looking very real because I based it off a photograph. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece.